Finally tonight, human costs from China's Industrial Revolution. Special correspondent Jeffrey Kay reports from Eastern China for our Global Health Unit.
Low-wage workers in China's industrial heartland are increasingly speaking out about labor conditions. Workers at this factory say that in 2009, they were poisoned making iPhones.
I want to tell all the American consumers the story behind the iPhones. We made iPhones with our health.
Someone else on the same question.
Interviewed in a dormitory for factory employees, these workers say they cleaned iPhone screens using N-hexane, a toxic chemical made from crude oil.
I used my left hand to hold the iPhone screen when it came down the work line, and with my right hand, I used a cotton cloth dipped in hexane to wipe the screen.
Independent studies from around the world have determined that the chemical the workers used, N-hexane, causes neurological damage ranging from dizziness to paralysis. Those symptoms compare to ones these workers say they suffered.
I have sweaty feet and hands. I feel very tired.
At the very beginning, I didn't know I was sick. I just felt weak and tired. Then slowly I found it difficult to walk or go up the steps of the bus. Then one day I fell over and decided I needed to check what was wrong with me. So I went to a hospital. I went to many hospitals in many cities. I eventually became very ill. I couldn't walk. I couldn't wash my hair. I had become very weak.
Is there anyone else here who was hospitalized? How long were you in the hospital?
From November 2009 until July 2010, so about 8 months.
Their employer is a subsidiary of the Wintec Corporation, headquartered in Taiwan.
Wintec ranks #1 among small to medium-sized LCD display manufacturers.
Besides supplying Apple, Wintec also makes touchscreen panels for Nokia, Garmin, and other companies.
Wintec lights up the displays that grant oncoming wishes.
The case of the iPhone workers has shed light on some of the human costs of China's rapid industrialization and prosperity. The nation of 1.3 billion people is transforming itself, turning increasingly into a country that consumes as well as produces goods. For example, Apple's 4 stores in China, including this one in Beijing, are on average the firm's most profitable. China's increased wealth has raised living standards, although the nation faces a growing gap between rich and poor. At the same time, authorities struggle to balance the needs of industry with the welfare of the environment and workers. To Ma Jun, a prominent environmentalist, Wintec and Apple illustrate a troubling pattern in the global supply chain. His Beijing-based organization, the Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, tries to track China's growing problems with industrial pollution and worker health.
Wintec represents the fact that China is now the workshop of the world. We're manufacturing for the entire Western world, and while we are exporting all these cheap products overseas, millions of workers are exposed to some of the unhealthy working conditions.
Wintec employees went public about their grievances in January 2010. Although China officially banned strikes and independent unions, worker protests are common. And in a several-hour walkout over a wage dispute, the Wintec workers also complained about their exposure to toxic chemicals. Last May, Wintec announced it had discontinued the use of N-hexane, had provided treatment as well as compensation for affected workers, and had stepped up monitoring at the factory.
Apple's response is very minimal, if not totally non-responsive.
Over the years, Ma has complained to many multinational corporations about their treatment of workers and the environment. But he says Apple stands out for being particularly unresponsive.
We're not trying to single out any single company. Apple singled out itself through the process, by shutting down the door of communications entirely. It's unique, among all the IT brands.
Both Wintec and Apple declined our interview requests for this story. But in February of this year, Apple issued a Supplier Responsibility Progress Report. It said in 2010, we learned that 137 workers at the Suzhou facility of Wintec, one of Apple's suppliers, had suffered adverse health effects following exposure to N-hexane. Apple called the incidents a core violation and said it had required Wintec to fix their ventilation system. The report added Apple has verified that all affected workers have been treated successfully, and we continue to monitor their medical reports until full recuperation. But the workers here say their recovery is slow, and this man says his symptoms persist.
The specialist in Suzhou Hospital said I need treatment immediately, but I went back to my company and they said I don't need to. So there is a dispute going on between the hospital and my company.
You're all continuing to work there, knowing that you may be exposing yourself to future sickness. Why do you continue to stay there?
I wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere else because I have this occupational disease. I wouldn't be able to get health insurance anywhere else.
Apple says Wintec has covered the costs of medical care for the workers, but advocate Debbie Chan says Apple should do more.
Apple owes the workers an apology and remedies.
Chan is with Students and Scholars Against Corporate Misbehavior, a Hong Kong advocacy group that for 6 years has researched worker rights and safety issues.
What more remedy do you expect?
At least it should cover the long-term health impacts to the workers, because the workers, they're really worried that if they leave the factory, maybe 2 years, 5 years, if their health deteriorating, then there won't be anyone responsible for them.
For its part, Apple, in its report, promised to better police its suppliers. It said it was requiring 80 facilities that were not properly storing or handling hazardous chemicals to change their policies.
Jeff Kay's next report will focus on reforming the healthcare system in China.